How you doing, Rippers? Hope you guys are all doing well. I know it's been a little bit of a time, but there's been a lot going on. As you guys well know, we're now up to attempt number 2 on a potential presidential candidate. And that should concern every American, not just the left, not just the right, every American. And the reason why is because it's meant to keep us divided, right? You've got one side on the left, half of them are saying, ah, dang, missed again, right? Just because of simply they don't like him for his personality, right? And maybe a few decisions he's made. I got news for you. There's a couple decisions he made that I didn't like much either. And yes, I think he could be a tad bit more or less, say, offensive. But there again, that's part of the problem. We need to get to a point in this country where we aren't so easily offended, right? You've got us being divided on one side or the other. On the right, of course, everybody's getting inflamed because they think it's the left behind these attempts on Trump and all. When honestly, it's probably not the left in the sense that it's the American people on the left, right? Because really, this country is supposed to be ran by us, for us, right? Those are people that are supposed to represent us, right? The problem is we have people in that power structure that have been in there so long due to lack of term limits, due to cronyism, right? Friendship type things, due to being basically leveraged either by doing naughty things and caught on camera you're not supposed to do, or by becoming owned by somebody who's lobbied you and given you money and now expects favors in return. See, all that kind of stuff was supposed to not be in our leadership, right? And I think we all know that deep down inside, right? I think on the left and on the right, which technically, in my opinion, there wasn't supposed to be a left or a right. There wasn't supposed to be political parties per se. There, at least not just two, because think about that. Inherently, two political parties divides the people right down the middle, right? And then, of course, when you get like that, you got people ingrained on both sides that are instigators, and those are the people we need to watch out for, that drive us to hating one side or the other. When we're all Americans, right? This is supposed to be for our better good. We don't have to agree on everything. In fact, we don't have to agree on anything in order to like each other, right? Because if we can treat each other with common courtesy and respect and act gracefully and in a godly way like was intended, well, we can have differences and still have the benefit for the greater good. Now, the greater good, that being said, is something they like to use against us when they're doing laws and stuff, saying they're passing laws for the greater good. The problem is, again, not the way it was intended, right? Free will, freedom, liberties was the way it was intended, right? It was intended that everybody has that freedom to do whatever they see fit, as long as they're not infringing upon the freedoms or liberties of others, right? Or harming another, right? And even in those cases, there was supposed to be consequences for doing those sort of things. And those consequences normally came from the people in that community, right? That's the whole reason why the states really are supposed to be the ones making a lot of decisions, and not so much the federal government being involved, right? They were just here for a couple things, like national defense, right? Infrastructure could be argued, maybe like major roadways, major power production, maybe. Although that most of that is being done by private corporations anyway, right? And I think what's happened here is we've allowed these entities, these mega corporations and billionaires that and even multimillionaires that own pretty much everything, as well as other countries, and I'll touch on that in a minute. But we've allowed them to come in and well, get too fat, right? And I'm not saying that they don't have the ability to do that in a free country, but I think they've lost, at least in the power structure, the idea of who's supposed to truly matter. Because think about it. We're the ones that buy the crap we don't need, right? Or that they want us to need. We don't have to buy it, but they've got us thinking so. They've also got us thinking in order to survive, we have to indebt ourselves and get credit cards and car loans and things like that, right? Instead of living a simpler lifestyle, which is something I'm trying to get back to. And it's not easy once you've been, because I myself will admit, at one point I was successful at what I did for a living, and I was proud of what I did, and I lived to the honor and or to the values that I had in what I produced, and that was building homes, doing developments, things like that. But I never lost track of who was important, and that was my customers, my neighbors, and the people who work for me, right? Because that's we the people, right? And if we only could see that if we truly want change, we need to stop fighting each other over the little things or even some big things, right? Because that's what they want. They want to keep us divided and so busy, angry at each other, rather than focusing on them. Because if you think about it, there's 350 some or 375 something million of us in this country, right? Even with sticks and stones, we are in control if we wanted to be. Now, I'm not saying that's something we want to do per se, but we want to be ready to be able to defend ourselves. And every time you turn around, they're trying to take that away. For instance, with these latest shootings and whatnot, and these are some predictions I'm going to make, and if I'm wrong, I'll be the first person to say, shoot, I was wrong. But I'm already seeing articles out there that I'm reading when I'm doing my due diligence, like we all should be doing, left or right, to find out the truth. Because anything I can tell you right now that you see on the news or even on social media and anything, hell, you don't know if it's fake. You don't know if it's propaganda or not anymore, unless it's somebody that I consider an actual citizen of a country or our country, filming something right then, showing it for real, right? And there's ways to prove that. Well, it doesn't mean it's true, right? And for instance, these last two attempts on a potential president's candidate, right? Or a presidential candidate's life, there's some things that I think we need to pay attention there rather than all of the stuff that's being spun out there, right? Couple things. When you look at some, and you want to look at the articles that don't have as much attention on them, but you can see certain points, right? First thing they want to do is come out and say it's an AK-47 before they even know the facts, right? And they, of course, first thing they want to do is come out and say it's a person that's a left-leaning Democrat, and that may be the case, but that doesn't mean that that's his motives, and that's meant to inflame us against each other. And we need to be sure we don't do that. Okay? We also, they say AK-47, even now when they know it wasn't an AK-47, it was an SKS, they still want to push that agenda. Why? Because the first people that come out there are the people in power on the left that say, oh yeah, this is why we need common sense gun control and an assault weapons ban, right? Okay, but then they get it right and they say it's an SKS, which is just a semi-automatic rifle, a lot like a hunting style rifle, although it wasn't made for that, or in the original cases. But I can tell you, up in Alaska, it's used quite often by the indigenous people up there because it's affordable to shoot and effective, right? It doesn't look like your normal assault rifle, although this one did have an extended magazine conversion on it, which, you know, you can do because this is a free country, right? But the reason, what I would watch out for is that they will try to spin this to make semi-automatic weapons illegal, or ban them, or do what's called what is that? A buyback, right? Well, a buyback is a ban, is a confiscation, right? Because what if I don't want to sell it? It's mine. I bought it, right? I'm a law-abiding citizen, or let's just say, I hate that word. I am a moral and good person, right? That respects others' rights and privacies and freedoms and all that kind of stuff. So, that being said, I'm not going to do anything harmful with it, and most people aren't, right? These are few cases. They get us inflamed over the small occasions where it happens. Now, some of you are going to say, "Oh no, it's rampant. These shootings are rampant." Well, not compared to other things, like, I don't know, the amount of people that die every day from being distracted on a cell phone while driving, right? Or other things like diseases, or being beaten to death by hands and fists, right? Even knives, right? They're making a big deal over the smallest amount. And how? Because they hit targets like schools. And I will say, I think that can be solved. One, it's not the tool. That's never going to solve it. It is the person. And in every case, we have seen that they have had fair warning that this person was going south, was making threats online, right? So why not intervene beforehand? And in most of these cases, they did. And they say there's nothing we can do. I mean, I think one of the biggest problems we have is that Reagan got rid of things like insane asylums. There needs to be a system or a facility somewhat like prisons, but not, and more like a hospital or an insane asylum, or, for lack of a better word, a mental facility, because that sounds a little bit better, where we can put these people until they're, one, either mentally stable, and that doesn't necessarily mean with medications. I think sometimes that adds to the problem, but is a safe person to be out in society, right? Somewhere we can put these people for a time being, while we hold their guns that they had, so that they don't go and act upon what they're doing, and get them to be a productive part of society again. And a lot of that comes with fixing society. I mean, if we think about it, the reason why people do these things they do is because they're desperate, not happy, don't feel like they're noticed, don't feel like they matter, don't feel like they have any purpose, right? We need to get that back into our country. And I think a lot of that came from shipping things out of the country, right? Have everything made outside the country, and all we are is a consumer. It's a very shallow life, right? We need to have worth. If we don't feel like we're worth something, or have something to give, or make things better, or make a mark, we get, well, kind of a black hole type feeling, right? And that's even worse when you throw in drug addiction and stuff like that, and that's because of the wide open borders that we have, right? Where people are just flowing through, criminals and all, drugs and all, and good people. But there has to be a controlled border, right? So that we're letting in the good people, right? Because that just adds to the problem. Once somebody's addicted to drugs and stuff like that, they feel even more hopeless, right? More lost. So we need a place to put those people. And instead of spending billions and trillions of dollars in wars and bases elsewhere, I would argue that, do we really need all of that? All that's doing is making money for the people who make things for war, and reducing the population, which is one of the things they think needs to happen. So really, we need to start demanding of our leaders, look, we want things made in the U.S., even if we might have to pay a little more at first, but we want to see a focus back in the USA, right? Which I think there are people who want to do that. I do think that Trump may be one of them. I'm not saying he's the best choice for it, but I am saying that I do think he sees where the mistakes have been made. And the problem is, we need to all realize is, while we're coming together, united as a people, is that it took decades to get here. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to happen with just one person, right? But we do need to get it back. I mean, let me ask you this, left or right, if I said to you, hey, I think it's a good idea if we have our enemy here make all of our medications for us because we can get them for dirt cheap, and then we don't even need to make them here anymore. Does being dependent like that on somebody who doesn't really like you in the first place, maybe, at this point at least, sound like a good idea? Well, it doesn't to me. And I don't think it does to Trump and other Republicans and things like that. Heck, I even think there's some liberal politicians that would agree with that, right? Does it make sense to have an open border and have people flooding in and giving them money that could be used to solve your own homeless crisis? Get on the internet. It's easy to find. There are streets full of people that are just addicted and dying on the streets, or homeless and living in RVs and tents, right? With no facilities. Our cities look nothing. It's to the point where I don't even want to go to a big city or see a big city, just from what I've seen. And granted, that might just be some areas, but you have to admit it's worse than we've ever seen, right? I know this. I've driven to big cities recently in my own state, Portland being one of them, and it's horrid compared to I ever remember growing up. And there's reasons for that, and there's tough choices that are going to have to be made. I think if I say to you, hey, we have enough energy reserves here and enough smart people here that we can take care of ourselves, powering our country, so that everybody has power and everybody has a place to live, right? Whether it be a small place, an apartment, a HUD home, whatever it might be. If I told you we have the ability to do that here, would you say no? Would you think it's a bad idea, no matter what side you're on? Because it is possible. We can make it happen. But doing things like cutting off a pipeline just because your opponent came up with the idea that could have brought all the oil we ever need into our country, or at least a good portion of it, right? Why would you do that? Unless it's to manipulate markets, to pay favors to other people, and to pad your own pocket. That's the problem here. We have people that are more interested in padding their own pockets, and now their pockets are so full that they're not happy unless they have total control and ownership of everything. Hence the reason why the comment was made by one of them, and I know you all know who it was: you will own nothing and be happy. That wasn't a joke. That was a potential idea for how they see the future should be. And there are countries like that right now. A lot of them kind of socialist run. The UK is a lot like that, in the sense that even if the housing isn't the nicest, people are in homes, right? But they don't have a way to defend themselves. Even now, to the point where they're having to ban big scary knives with scary words on them, because the getting rid of scary guns thing eventually didn't end up being really effective. Crime is still crime. Criminals are still criminals. And those people need to be dealt with. That's what prisons are for. Or islands somewhere else where, hey, you want to be animalistic? Send them to an island like they used to do in the old days and let them govern themselves and kill themselves or whatever, right? Let them fend for themselves. The ones that don't like that idea, well, prison's your next option. For the people who are mentally ill, now, I can tell you this, I can get on YouTube right now and find probably at least a dozen people that need a visit from the local authorities and uh, local mental health and be locked up for a little bit and separated from things they could use to help each other. That doesn't mean take them away from them, because that's not constitutional, but separating them, yes, and hardening our schools. I'll put it out there right now to the powers to be. You're willing to pay me, and I will make sure that every school is hardened to the appropriate level, that there won't be any more of these shootings. I can guarantee that. I don't know how long it'll take me because I haven't run the numbers yet, but I guarantee you I can get it done. It's not that hard, and I can do it without our kids feeling like they're going to school and feeling like they're secure at school. It really wouldn't be that difficult, because not every school needs to be hardened to the same level, right? Because it's kind of regional. It's kind of whether it's in the inner city or not, right? And a lot of that will come with fixing our homeless inner city drug type issues, right? Getting people jobs where they feel good about themselves, that they're contributing to society and being able to live a comfortable life. I think it's possible to be done. And the reason I'm touching on these subjects is because these are a lot of the falsehoods that they apply. For instance, they always want to say every time there's an event like this, well, this is why we need common sense gun laws. We already have common sense gun laws. They just don't enforce them. They don't implement them, either because they're not funded enough to, or they're told not to devalue areas, to cause division, right? I think we can all agree on that. And I can tell you this, we already have universal background checks. I can tell you, I've never purchased a single firearm that I haven't filled out, well, at least in my state, for many, many years. And it's been this way for, gosh, I don't know, I need at least over 10 years now. But pretty much anywhere you go, one, you can't go to another state and buy a firearm unless you fill out, well, you can't go to another state and buy a firearm, period, in most cases. I know that's this way here in Oregon. In Oregon, if somebody from another state wants to buy a gun, they tell them no. If I wanted to go into a gun store or a gun show, because that loophole doesn't exist. So please listen to me if you're on the left. If you're okay with being lied to and that's okay with you and a candidate, you might want to revisit that opinion, right? Because you're being lied to, period. Background checks have been in place for years now, right? I couldn't go into a gun store or a gun show and walk out with a firearm without filling out a 4473, which is a background check, and then having to wait for it to be approved. And these days, that doesn't happen right away. There doesn't even need to be a 10-day waiting period, which didn't work here in Oregon anyway when they tried that. But there doesn't need to be, because you're not getting your gun that day in most cases, because there's so many people buying firearms because things are getting that bad. It's happening just from nature, right? So I can tell you that's a lie. When they tell you that kind of thing, that's a lie. When they tell you that an AR-15 is a weapon of war and that it is super magnum explosive, weighs like 10 boxes and shoots a 50 caliber bullet, all ignorant. If you are electing people like that don't even have the time to spend or the care to look up their facts, then you might want to reconsider that. And that doesn't matter what side you're on, right? Because the AR-15 is one of the smaller cartridges out there. It was designed to be that way. It was designed to maim and wound rather than kill outright. It was designed to hold more ammo rather than more powerful ammo. And in most states, it's not even legal to hunt with, because it's not effective on big game. So that, if you do your homework, should tell you that it's all BS, right? And when they say the mandatory buybacks, that means confiscation, right? Because they're not offering up any grandfather clauses, and even if they were, it still wouldn't be right. They tried that already. We had an assault weapons ban. It didn't work. That's why it sunsetted and it went away. Right? Now they want to bring that back, minus the grandfather clause, it sounds like, to me at least. So we need to start talking with each other and getting educated. Most of these people don't even know what they're describing to you. Heck, we have them doing press conferences and stuff where they are showing the weapons and they don't even know how they function yet. These are the people that are in the office that's the leaders of who decides what when it comes to gun laws, the ATF, right? They can't take apart a simple Glock. They can't, they get it wrong when they say that a adjustable stock makes it a machine gun or a bump stock makes it a machine gun. Neither of them do, right? And besides, what's wrong with people owning machine guns? There are countries out there, I believe Austria, Norway, somebody like that, they assign them to their people. They're required to be proficient every year or something. They have to come out and show proficiency with it and have it ready in case they're invaded, because they don't really have a standing army, right? But you don't see the crime levels there. It's because the problem isn't the firearm. The problem is the society. And right now, ours is extremely divided. And I can tell you, just by the articles I've been reading from this last attempt on Trump, they're going to try and use it to come after semi-auto firearms. They're going to try and use it because each of those criminals had encrypted accounts of some sort, whether it was bank account, messaging account like Signal or Telegram, or encrypted, other kinds of accounts, right? Because it's been made mention quietly in the articles, but they're going to want to pass laws like the Patriot Act again because of these events. And it's going to escalate, in my opinion. And I hope I'm wrong. And if I am, I'll be the first person to say I was wrong. But as it escalates, they're going to want to further take away our rights to privacy and our other rights, right? They're going to want either access or to ban encrypted services so that they can see what's going on. Even though they already knew these people were on their radar. So I hope I'm reaching both sides here, because quite honestly, I'm neither left nor right. I have beliefs on both the left and the right, and I have ideas that I think, if combined, if we all could learn how to come together and discuss things and actually act and be proactive, that we could make the changes that are necessary. It's going to take time, and there's going to be growing pains. It's not going to be easy, but I believe it could be done. So I just wanted to take a minute to tell you guys that. And the next time you're in an argument or something like that with that, take a minute, take a breath, count to 10. Because I know this, I've met plenty of people on the left lately, whether it be my doctor or the person that's doing some PT I'm having to do, and other things like that. We're able to discuss these things and come up with good ideas without yelling and screaming at each other and hating each other, or even getting booted as saying, I don't want you as a patient, or I don't want you as a doctor, right? That's what we need more of. That's the key. The key is the people. So until next time, stay safe, be secure, always be aware of your surroundings, always carry, and staying alert and ready for anything that may come your way. Till next time, adios and aloha.